Okay. So I was saying that in, basically that people, whenever they believe in something, right, whatever it is, they you believe in it, then it's okay. I believe in these people. I believe these people are dispossessed, and I believe that um, women are abused immensely by men, and I believe that men are trash, and I believe that there's injustices in all of these things. And I'm gonna push it all the time, and that's the way it is, and that's me now, right? And then obviously, then the media comes through, and then the media says, oh, "Okay, well, perfect. We have to be. You're gonna keep selling this narrative. You're gonna keep selling these narratives as long as there's gonna be polls. That there's polls, and there's going to be conflict. There's conflict. We sell. Whether we believe in this stuff or not, it doesn't matter. And we're always going to choose a versus thing, men versus women, black versus white, um, vaccinated versus non-vaccinated, ANC versus DA. It happens everywhere. This religious tribe, I mean, uh, these religious people versus these religious people. It always has to be a versus thing because if everyone can unite and be one part of one group, then it doesn't make sense anymore, right? Then we don't sell,
Mhm.
right? So now you have people then that are on polar opposite sides that are going to now be supporting these things, right? So you have then a feminist, and you have this what's it, male what, get MGOTW thing, like the men's movement, right? You have this men's
Yeah.
movement that are now trying to advocate for men. So it's like whenever we have a gender-based violence thing, which again, like I said, doesn't make sense, but we can leave that for now. But whenever we have a situation where a guy um, physically assaults or kills a woman, then all of a sudden you have those two polar people that'll then be, the one will say, yeah, but what happened to what the woman did for him to get to what he did, right? And you have the other side saying, well, it actually doesn't matter, right? Because then only thing that does matter is the fact that this person got killed. And it's like, okay, well, you're both not wrong, right? And you're both right. It's like, yeah, it actually does matter that the other person, whatever the other person said to the one person, because that was a result of that. But also on the one side, you never have to take physical violence to a point where, well, physical violence in general, but even more so to the point where you kill someone for something that has happened, right? But then it's like the media
Mm.
never want you to come to the middle. As soon as you come to the middle, then you can converse. Then me and you can say, look, well, how about you tell people, let's say you're a feminist and I'm in the MGT, whatever it is, the men's movement, right? We don't want, the media doesn't want us to come to the middle and say, look, perhaps you should tell your females or you should tell females that they should stop trying to instigate fights or conversations or anything that they won't be able to handle because men on the other side don't know what to do when it comes to women when a woman is going to outspeak them, right? Because we know what to do with other men, right? If I say something to a guy and we can't solve it, we go straight into a fist fight, right? But we don't know what to do when
Yeah.
it comes to women, right? So therefore, then you say, so then the man will then say, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to then abuse you, and then that's that, right? And then I can say, you know what? Also, in the same breath, perhaps you can then say to me, well, in the same breath, you need to speak to guys to make sure that they also understand that women have then a threshold as well, whereby when they get really super angry, they will blurt out anything that they want, right? And they will name and shame you. They will absolutely try to end your career. They'll use your kids against you, everything to try to maim you, right? And then it's like, okay, well, perhaps I could tell them that. And then we meet in the middle. And as soon as we meet in the middle, we can kind of resolve the conflict and there'll be less of this going on, right?
Yeah.
So we could do that. But then the media doesn't benefit from that because now it's, well, now we have nothing to sell because now these people came to a whole conclusion themselves, right? We want them as polar as
Mm.
possible so that we can always pick which side to, we're always going to benefit. Because whether we pick this side this week, we go next week, we go pick the other side, right? And
Mm.
there's always going to be enough people on either side making a noise and trying to buy or sell whatever we have, right? So it's almost like a pendulum,
Yeah.
right? Where we're
Yeah.
swinging from one
I
high
think.
point on the one side to the one high point on the other side with moments in the middle, but then that moment in the middle is not long enough, and then we go boom straight back that side. And as long as that keeps happening, then I am benefiting as someone that's going to be selling the things that you guys are going to be hearing and reading.
Yeah, I think we will never get to a time where media is really standing up for either group. So the more we understand that they're there as a business and their business runs on whatever's dramatic and happening, then the better position we will find ourselves in terms of like finding more solutions elsewhere. Even though like they will always chase the story, but then it will never be for anything necessarily good. It's
Yeah,
they will just even in some stories they will like just make it a bit more dramatic than it
that's what
was.
it is.
So if you were there, you like, but then that didn't exactly happen that way. But then
Yeah,
only like to get the reaction from people or
yeah,
like to get the heading to be catchy and stuff at a cost that is like you're like that wasn't really what was happening. But for them it's like I need that person to read that story or to um to just watch it. So the ratings are the important thing. So yeah.
yeah. So exactly that. So then that's why every single time it's always a narrative like this. We live it every single year. We live it in every single country, every single place. It's always of this versus that, this versus that, this versus that, and then next week we do it again, this versus that. So again, it's like we're gonna have this COVID talk again next week. We get where it's these people should vaccinate and they're going to fight the people that shouldn't be vaccinated. And then until that story dies out, there's nothing to solve. Then the following week, how about we go into a racial debate? Okay, well, something happened racially somewhere. So now let's divide people again. And then we're going to have black and white. And then we're going to go boom again. Okay, well, how about we're going to then try to get countries to go against each other? How about we have, the English versus the Welsh or the Scottish? And it's as long as there's polars, then everything works. But then it gets even worse with that because then as soon as you start giving people incentives to being at the polls, which is a job, then they have nothing else. They have no other reason to then converse with the other people because now they have an incentive to be there and to stay at the polls, right? So again, it's what I was saying now with with big girl and thin women and males and females, gender-based violence, and all this stuff, right? You get given like a job to say now you're a woman empowerment, and this guy now is a male empowerment person, right? So now whether he now says actually I think men are really empowered, and whether she says oh actually I think women are already empowered doesn't matter anymore. It's not about them anymore. It's about the fact that they need to do a job. So they'll just keep feeding the narrative, regardless of what the narrative is, just so that they can then get the incentive. You see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and that's legit politics. That's what politics does. Is that whether you're on the right or you're on the far left, right, and you believe that you know what, actually, I feel as though we should close our borders on the one side, and the other side, and then the other side says, no, I feel as though that we should open borders. If you're on the one side and you actually at some point believe maybe we should go with what they're saying, you can't because then that means that then you're no longer part of this side. And therefore you don't deserve the incentives of this side. So you end
Yeah.
up pushing a narrative that you're pushing regardless of whether you believe it or not, just so that then you can get the incentives, right? But then what happens is that the people that are supporting or listening or trying to go with you that are not getting incentives still keep believing that, yep, this is right. Yep, that is right. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
I couldn't care. I really look, man. I don't really care about what I'm doing. I'm just doing a job, right?
Yeah, and people will follow what they already sort of believe. So if you are like standing up for a certain something, you have that following because it interests them somehow. So
Yeah,
whatever it is that you are feeding each other on that platform will be that. So Yeah. So even if you don't believe it anymore, somebody will always give you a story to follow, a story to push, because
Yeah.
they kind of motivate you as well to, put up a certain story like, oh, this and that. And then you can go off of that. Like you feed off each other, the energy. And
Yeah.
then like this with the media as well, it was interesting that somebody posted something like, um, I wanted to be healthy or something like that. And then I just stopped watching the news because they just like feed you all the negativity all the time. So at just certain point, you just like, no, like I just need a break from just because it's like one bad story after the other. There's no like, oh yeah, this was amazing and it happened here and there. It's always like, okay, what's going to be dramatic and all of that. So the more news you're watching, the sadder you are because it's just like, ugh, like the world is terrible. When yes, it is terrible, but it doesn't mean that it's as, like dramatic as they make the story out to be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly that, man. And it's like this, for example. It's like it gives you like it gets to a point where you stop thinking for yourself, because well,
mhm.
why would I think for myself if the other person's thinking for me and then I can just take that narrative and run away with it, It's easier that way. But then it's easier now, but it's harder in the future because then when you look back at why you believe in something now, right? You think, man, why did I even think like that back then? And again, it's like because it's easily captivating to listen to something. You think, yeah, exactly, yeah, well, I'm the victim here. Yeah, well, that makes sense because I am the victim, and it's like, yeah, for sure you are. So is everyone else, and so everyone else is also a perpetrator. How about that? But it's like, no, I
Yeah.
don't wanna think about that. I'm gonna think about how I'm a victim now, and then it's like, okay, well, think about that because you're benefiting now, right? Then as soon as the wheel turns and
Yeah.
it's your time now to be shot at, what's your time now to actually be at the bad end of the stick, then you're gonna say, whoa, wait, how did this work? And the brilliant episode on South Park on this, but it's legit that. It's like there's an episode on South Park where Cartman goes against ginger kids, right? And he's just talking
Okay.
about how like ginger kids are terrible and that they should just all be exterminated, like just Hitlerish type of stuff, right? And then one day they dye his hair, right? And then they dye it ginger or orange. Um, and then all of a sudden he's like, uh, we should fight against oppression. So in every instance, you're always going to try to look at yourself as the victim because that way the game works for you that way. And that's what the media pushes as well. That's why they need to have the polls, right? Is that if you have the polls and these people are going against you, and they go to whisper to these people and they say, no, these people are going against you. And then boom, you guys have a fight and then that's media. That's a story. It's like get
But then
exactly like
also
that.
if but then also if you think about it, like it only makes sense for people to think to fight for something they feel they're affected by. So like if they feel that poor people, for instance, are not being treated well,
Mm-hmm.
it's very likely that as a poor person you will try and stand up for the poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you are like a group of like you've been raped or something, now you're going to be an activist in that area. So it only makes sense, like in that way, that you be like, okay, I have this anger and I want to like do it that I fight for the next person in the same situation as myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one that actually like is very unexpected is when somebody's not that and they claim that they're standing up for that. That's another one that I'm like, okay, I'm a bit like confused as to like what makes you fight for these people, what fuels you in
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
area. Are you there because of the job you get it, you know a check and there's nothing else to do, or what's your reason, like, or motive to stand up for this people group, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Because like if you can see yourself in that or being a victim of that thing, then obviously you're gonna be like, I'm gonna be the one that does something about this, or this is not right, and whatnot.
Yeah. No, that I agree with that, especially that first part where you said that it only makes sense that you're going to then fight for what you feel as though is beneficial for you. Which is why I say again, it's like anyone at some point will always have something that they feel like, oh, okay, well, I can feel this is happening to me, therefore I'm going to now act. It's going to benefit me at some point as well, which is why I will do it. Because if it does the negative, then why would I do it to myself? I'm only going to do things that benefit me. So it makes sense then to say, well, if I was poor and I felt what poor people feel like, I'm going to activate poor people. There's no problems in that, right? Well, look, I was violated, and now that I'm violated, I'm going to then speak up for people that are being violated. No problem with that, right? The issues come in when you say, I'm violated, right? And I'm now going to then go after everyone else that I think violated. That's where the issue comes in. And that's where the media comes in. Because then they give you a place, they give you something to throw your anger towards or your resentment towards, right?
Yeah.
And then they go to that team and then they say, hey, look, these guys are throwing stones at you, so you guys should probably pick up these stones and throw it back at them. Mm-hmm. See? Now you have not just someone that's fighting for the poor, you have someone that's fighting for the poor against the rich. Then the rich said, but I didn't take anything of yours. Then the media goes to them and says, well, look, in order for the world to kind of keep going, to kind of have this infrastructure and all this technology we have, we need to incentivize people for making these things. And then those people end up being rich because then they get work and all sorts of stuff and they get paid higher and all this stuff. They end up to be rich. It's not necessarily that they're taking from the poor. So then you have them, the media goes in and says, hey, look, hey, these guys are trying to, they're saying that you guys are here to blame for that. Then the rich stay and fight back. And then as long as there's conflict, and it's like, oh, perfect. That works. We keep going. It's exactly what happens. Again, it's like I always think, let's say again, as a woman, like let's say you're brought up with brothers and cousins and uncles and the father, let's say, and you're female, you have all these people around you, and they've never violated you, and they've always protected you, right? Like, where do you get the guts to rock up and say that men are trash, for example? Like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Or to say that men are terrible. Anything negative towards males, whereas the people that are surrounding you have been nothing but protected, right? And it's like, oh, well, because someone's come to you and kind of fed you all these things to say, well, look, these people might be great, but those ones out there, they're terrible. And it's like, so that means I'm a victim. Yes, so that works. And then not just that, I'm angry and they know that and they sympathize with me. It's like, someone understands my feelings because I'm a victim. And it's like, yeah, sure. But now, not only that, then they say, direct your anger towards that way. And then you go and you bash those people, not knowing that the people that you're bashing, that you think are far away from you, they're closer than they are, because they are your support structure here at home. And then you have the opposite happening on the other side, where you have males that are chilling, getting all this backlash from women that are going to at one point end up saying, you know what, sick and tired of women trying to bash us every single time that one random guy in a little corner somewhere goes and kills his girlfriend, for example. All right, he goes out there and he kills his girlfriend for whatever reason that he has, whether I care about it or not. But the fact that now I'm put in this predicament is terrible, and I hate it, and I'm going to go after every single person that comes after me, right? And then you get these wars on Twitter, and you get these wars on Instagram and Facebook, and in real life, when all of a sudden every girl that comes to you say, I hate feminists, I hate this, I hate these people that think like this, I just hate this thought process, right? I hate people that are trying to always put men down. I hate women too, right? And then it's like, you're a guy, you have sisters, you have aunts, you have your mother, you have your grandmother, all sorts of female support structures, colleagues at work that are more than supportive uh, to you and show you no negative emotions whatsoever, right? But then again, like I said, you get told, hey, look, they're throwing stones, throw stones back. Now you have your little anger, you have your little resentment, throw it back, and you throw it back at them. And I understand your pain, and I understand your victimhood, and they're the oppressors. And then it's back and forth, right? And then again, you forget that you have these people here, and the enemy is actually not those people, it's you and the people that are around you.
Yeah, somebody's always benefiting of somebody's emotions, and especially when they're uncontrolled like that. Like somebody looks at you and be like, okay, as terrible as that sounds, like somebody like will use like your tragic story or your tragic like state of emotions for their benefit. Like I was actually like, because of what just happened in Afghanistan and whatnot and all that drama. And we were having like that debate, or not debate, like just discussing how the last 20 years the US was there and what. And I was like, to be honest, like some people are benefiting from like people fighting war.
Yeah.
Like somebody looks at war and they're like, oh my goodness, when is this stopping? And somebody's looking at the same situation and seeing an opportunity
Yeah.
of like making a sale somewhere or even bigger. So you like, yeah, like we can look at the same story, but then somebody could be fueling it with like more like flames and whatnot. And somebody could be like, okay, and very like less people would be like, okay, how do I help this person genuinely for them to get out of the situation? Someone is like, okay, I need another drama for tomorrow or another this. So how do I fuel it like to be, even worse and escalate?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's always that to watch out for. Like, okay,
Yeah.
why is this person here? Or why are they helping me or trying to help me?
Yeah, exactly
So
that. Exactly that.
yeah.
And again, like I said, it gets even worse when that person is given an incentive, like a job, because then even it's like even with this conversation, after this, I'm gonna leave and go live my life. You're gonna go and live your life. Someone might come to you and say, "Look, I really, really like that way that these two people spoke. So therefore, I want to speak to them all the time because that's always what they're going to believe." It's like, bro, no. Like, have your own mindset, have your own way of thinking. This is just part of something that you can then put in whatever you're going to put in. But don't think that it's only happening because we want you to be thinking about this and I want to go and drive my whatever, what do you call this, YouTube channel, whatever it is. It could be that. It could be that, look, I want to get followers. I'm going to always keep saying stuff that's going to get people riled up and get people excited because at the end of the day, I benefit, right? So it's like, got to think critically about that when you listen to stuff or when you see people, when you hear people. It's like, what benefit does he have from all of this stuff? Before I even try to listen to the stuff that he has, because then that might then influence the things that he's saying. So it happens everywhere. It even happens in health. It's like you don't want people to be in pain or you don't want people to be sick. Fine, fair enough, right? Maybe that is your primary goal in life, or that's your primary satisfaction, right? But now you get an incentive, you get a job, and your job is to make sure that those people aren't sick, right? But now let's say one day everyone gets cured of everything. What happens to you and your
You have
job?
no work. Yeah. That's why even like this is how like people can really like get lost in all the stories that aren't true, because there's always that where you'd be like, okay, I need to know like is this person giving me the best thing, or they're just trying to keep me, like to be their customer, and every however many weeks or whatever I did to come back and get some more drugs, and or are they gonna give you like the right, like you don't need this or you need that, and especially it's been quite a big debate with like depression. Like, when do you get somebody on the tablets, or are there other treatments that you can give them to like work through, like without being medicated and stuff like that? It's like you always have to check, like, okay, yes, this person, I mean, at this point you trust them because they're a doctor or whatever, but then you're like, okay, I need to evaluate properly, like, are they doing this for my benefit or for theirs? Like, just to be careful there. But not only in like medicine, in a whole lot of other stuff, like
In
you
everything.
mentioned. Yeah, you gotta like check, okay, like, is this good for me or just benefiting the other person?
But
So,
not, and not only that, it's like exactly what you're saying. But not only that, it's like you know that it's going to benefit that other person. That's otherwise they wouldn't be doing it, right? Now the question is also to what benefit is his benefit benefiting me as well, and it needs to be mutual. Because at the end of the day, you also want to get better. That's your benefit. There's a reason why you came to him, right? And he wants you to get better, but at the same time, he's doing a job too, so that's his benefit from you. So you also always want to harmoniously benefit, right? So there's a mutual benefit in that, right? But it's not to toxic levels. You see, so that's the other thing is then you want to make sure that this person, at least when I leave him, he goes and I go, we're both in a better state than we were before we met each other. It becomes toxic levels like in medications where now the medication is benefiting, or it's just the body doesn't benefit. Then the one just goes and the other one just like, well, I'm still, what's happening here? And you're always constantly going to be thinking about that because you also going to do whatever you're doing because you want to benefit. You get a lawyer instead this lawyer instead of that lawyer because you want to benefit from this lawyer. But he also wants to get his numbers up to make sure that I'm choosing this case instead of that case because I'm going to benefit more from this case. So there needs to always be that mutual thought process, right? Even though there's incentive on either side.
yeah.
Right? So that's always the thing. It's like on either side, as much as we have incentives of, look, you can be a woman empowerment person, or look, you can be a men empowerment person. It's like, okay, but now how are they benefiting the people that they're fighting for, or the people they claim to be fighting for? And how much are they benefiting of the people that are fighting for? How much are they also benefiting? Because if you get a situation where someone really cares and says, "Look, I'm going to give all the women all the power in the world because I really care about them," right? Then the women get all the power in the world, and then they turn around and say, "Look, we have all the power. You gave us all the power, but we think that we need to put someone else in power because we got more power than you now." Then boom, then you're dethroned. And the same people that you fed come back and they bite that hand that fed them. You see? And then it's not mutually beneficial then. Right? It happens everywhere, in every kind of sphere of life. It happens with politics. Like, okay, let's give everyone houses, let's everyone benefit. And those same people turn around and they say, yeah, well, this only means now that I have more power than you. So hey, how about you get off that high horse? And you're like, what? But I fed you this. I gave you what you wanted me to. Like, yeah, but your time's up. And then boom, you're gone. You know?
And also people start off like genuinely caring in other things, and then as time goes, then they become a bit more greedy. They become this, all power becomes a thing where they're like, okay, now I'm gonna do everything in my power to stay where I am, which is at all powerful and stuff. And then that's when things start to get messed up because you're like, okay, why did you start this to begin with? Was it to always be this powerful person? or was it to like uplift someone else, or what was your motive, and are you still there, or now it's become something that it wasn't originally?
Yeah,
So,
that's
and
the
it
power.
always, because
Sorry.
like apart from, if maybe like you are in politics, like, going in, like sometimes that you are lying to the people or whatever. But then some people with certain movements, it's like, okay, I know that I'm going into this thing genuinely wanting to help these people. But then later, then, life happens and they change, and then you're like, whoa, this is not what it was supposed to be, or how it started off over time.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's the power of incentive, and that's the. Someone said to me that a human's biggest problem is expectations and setting goals. But at the same time, those same things are our biggest weapon because we need to set goals to move forward. You don't want to go backwards in life. But at the same time, if you don't reach those goals, then it's a massive issue. Then it hits you hard, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're saying now. It's like it's also a question of did that person actually change? It's like perhaps that was always an underlying thing. Perhaps the fact that these people were fighting for you for fees all the time was that they just got offices in power, right? Perhaps the fact that they're
Yeah.
saying now they care about how you dress and how males are killing you. Perhaps they just want an office in power. Perhaps they want to, push their own agendas and their own Instagram things and all these things that they want to push. Perhaps it's that. And then when they get there, then they're like, cool, great stuff. Thanks for that. And that's it. And then you say, oh, but you've changed. And then the person says, no, I just put on a facade for you. I really didn't change.
Mhm.
So that's the thing. It's always a question that you always have to ask yourself. Well, what are the intentions of this person? Why are they doing
Mhm.
it? And it's a constant question. Well, if he's only benefiting and doesn't care about the benefit of someone else, then probably not the right person to be around.
Yeah.
Not the right
You
person to
gotta
support.
always look up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
and that,
always have to look out for yourself.
yeah, and that's true. You have to because I mean, then you die, right? So that's
Yeah.
ultimately what happens. But at the same time, you want to do it with a bit of negotiation where it's like, look, I'm gonna look after myself. I'm buying a pie and I'm gonna eat it. But at the same time, I don't want you to starve, so I'll give you some of it. But I need to make sure that I'm not dead. Right? It's a very rare person that will always give you the pie every single time. Right? Very, very rare person. And also, even then, it's a very rare person as well to not a rare person to always take the pie as well. Because someone will always be willing to take that pie. But the problem is
Yeah.
that then you'll keep continuing, you'll just die off. And then there'll be more people that are then less. That's how that makes you rare as a person. That doesn't wanna that always gives away your pie because then you die off and then he keeps going. And then he just formulates more people that want to keep the pie. You
Hmm.
see? So it's someone asked as well, if I think that the media, what David asked, Uncle Dave asked, if I think that this media and its influences only influence the younger generation more than it does the older generation.
Media
Yeah,
or social media.
media and social media.
Because I think with the two platforms, it's like, okay, like the younger generation is like influenced by both, I think. Um, but then even more so like social media. Like we are on every platform, and so much so that we are literally very addicted to it all. Like in one young person's life, like the majority of their time they just spend on online, either pushing work or just being there and just like doing God knows what. But I think with media, it affects us all. Like it's
Yeah.
not because like older people are watching, are taking in all the content all the time. It's like, you home, you're watching the news, they're repeating whatever it is that you may have missed when you were at work or whatever. The story is gonna get to you somehow. Um,
Mhm.
And even them, they probably will watch it on their phones and catch up with what's happening around them and whatnot. So I think we are, like younger people, are at information overfeed with
Mhm.
both of them. But then the older people, it's more media that
I
they are
I agree.
really.
I agree with that. And not only that, just to add on to that as well, I think it's not just emotional, I mean, information overfeed. I think it's information overfeed primarily on one side. So and it started off as an algorithm, or with these algorithms trying to actually give you what you want to watch. Because if you like to watch makeup shows or cooking shows, for example, it's like you don't want to see football popping up. You don't want to see Messi popping up. It's like I don't care about that. So let's make it easier for her and see that. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, it's more inclined to what I'm doing. And then for me, it's like, well, I don't care about the cooking stuff. I want to see sport, and more sport, right? And it's like, cool, that sounds fair enough, no problem. The issue comes in when it starts to giving us when it feeds our negative emotions as well. Then it's like, okay, well, I want to see Black Lives Matter, and I really think, okay, let me watch one video, and you watch one video of guys, a cop shooting a black guy. All of a sudden, that's all you're watching, right?
Yeah.
You've never in your life, in your entire life, experienced it even, most times. Never experienced it
Mm-hmm.
outside where something has gone on like that, right? But it's like, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. And now we're two polar opposites, two people that are polar opposites. They get fed two different sets of information. So therefore, I'm going to go with what I'm going, and you're going to go with whatever you're going. And then that's when it's tragic. But then again, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, the media benefits because it's like, well, now we've got two polar sides. We've got males and then we've got female, and then we can always switch them up with whatever we want. We can have it vaccinated, not vaccinated, um, black, white. We can have it cultural, non-cultural. It's like we can just keep changing, but we have verses in the middle, and then they're both going on to opposite sides. And it's like it's always funny to me sometimes how all these like after every 2 weeks, like we'll be fighting a guy will be fighting a girl in a battle when it's like males versus female violence thing. Males are fighting against females, and then like a week later, we both get vaccinated, for example, and then we now all of a sudden are on the same team fighting against someone else that's not vaccinated. It's like, oh, we're throwing stones at each other just last week. It's like, yeah, but it's not that fight now. We're fighting them. It's like, okay, cool. And the week after that, it's like, oh, okay, well then now we're fighting about now all of a sudden a guy uh, violates another woman, and it's like, oh, okay, you're on my team. Okay, well you need to go back on your team, and then that person that we were fighting against comes onto my team, and now we are fighting against each other again. It's like it just keeps going on like that, right? And again, it's like it's exactly what I'm saying. It's just, well, let's go into polar opposite sides and then make those people feel bad about you. You know, you're the one that's victimized. Okay, cool, fair enough. But you also an oppressor, right? Don't forget about that. But the problem is that the other side, when the media puts you onto the other side, they're not gonna want you to show you that you're the oppressor. They're not gonna want to show that you then first pulled out the gun at another cop before they shot you, or that there was a time where you actually shot a cop. They're not gonna want to show you that. Why would they? You
Yeah.
understand?
It's also like now that actually you speak of like how they feed you things, I'm like, how much of the things that you actually post or like follow and all of that on your social media are actually things that you choose, or they just create content for you? Because like even like if for instance you post like, I don't know, a plate of cheese or something, and all of a sudden now it's just cheese like popping up, and you're like, how much of it is it like just them just selecting, okay, this person is gonna see all of this now, so the content, you think that, you know what, choosing to follow this activist or choosing to follow this kind of like talk, but then you follow one and then they all, so they kind of shape your thinking, they shape, because that's all you read, that's all you see. So I'm like, how much
No,
of all of this is actually your choice?
yeah.
Or,
Well, part of it
yeah,
is you can say that there has to be some sort of choice from yourself for them then to then keep feeding it. You just need to say that
mm,
you're hungry, so that's the choice. Then whatever food that's dished up, they choose it for you, and then the more food that you then choose to eat, that's the more that they will give to you. You know, that's why you find this. That's why you find that in every single place, everyone sees different things. You know, no one knows
yeah,
about protests that happened back in SA, for example, if you're all the way in in China. It's like, why would you care? You know, it's got nothing to do with you. And same with you if you're in SA looking at things that are happening in China. It's like, well, no, why would you care? So let's feed you what we want to feed you here. You know, it's the same with all these. And again, like I say, it's a positive and a negative, but the positive hits worse because then it gives you positive reactions that you then go out into the world and act. You see, because now all of a sudden, again, what I'm saying, it's like this guy goes and murders his girlfriend. Absolutely tragic. But now that all of a sudden, all you see is every single time that a guy had done something to a woman that's ir- that's just out of this world, right? And then then you get programmed. Oh, okay, well, yeah, hate men, hate men, hate men. Women are great, women are great, women are
yeah.
great, and hate men. You don't once ever think that, well, actually, I have men out there that are protecting me. Because all you're seeing is lots more, lots more, lots more. And you're going so much further away from the other side, right? You're getting so much further away from the other side where now all of a sudden on the other side, what they feed the other person or the other guy is, well, look, woman gets crazy, crashes car, demolishes home, burns up tires, you know, or burns up the guy's tires, tries to absolutely annihilate him um, with his kids. You don't see that. He sees that stuff, and then neither of you see either thing on either
Mm-hmm.
side, right? I don't get to see what you see, you don't get to see what I see, and then that way works out. That's how you get two polarizing things all the time, right? Where you go on that's why you go on social media, you'll find that one person will say, "This is my viewpoint," and someone else will say, "That is so ridiculous. I cannot even understand why you would think that." It's like it's actually true. You can't understand it because he's never seen that view side.
Yeah,
And then he says,
yeah,
well, I don't understand how the hell you thinking about this. And then you find that these people actually been living different lives. All his time in his life, he's been wronged by women all his life. Or all the time in his life, he's been wronged by white people. But then this side, all the time in her life, she's been wronged by men. All the time in her life, she's been wronged by black people. And that's all you see.
mm-hmm. And that's your narrative. It's like this kind of people are this kind of people are that. If you don't know any different, then you're like, okay, all of them are this. But
Yeah, yeah.
until
And
you
that's why,
get given an opportunity to see like the same like particular person in a different form. Like for instance, if all you know is like terrible men, for instance, and you yourself never experienced anybody that's like a man and kind or whatever, not abusive, then that's all you see. So then when
yeah.
you actually see somebody that's not as abusive, it's like, you know, wow, people like this exist. But then
You
until
don't even
then,
know that people like that exist. Like as soon as you see something like that, you don't even acknowledge it because it doesn't hit you.
mm,
Like, okay, I don't see it. You actually do not see it. You know, it's like
yeah,
if you grow up and again in an abusive home and all you see is a tyrannical father that's always that means that whenever he's trying to impose power on you, he hits you or he beats you. Every single time you see someone that's a CEO or someone that's in a position of power, all you think is he probably is so overpowering that he's gonna put me down. You don't see the fact
yeah,
that perhaps this person worked where he got.
Yeah, that's true. True, true, true.
So, yeah, man. And like I said again, it's as soon as, so the media says, as soon as we can get two polarizing sides, we give incentives on one side, give an incentive on the other side, then they'll just keep pushing the roads for us. No problem. Just give this one a tag, this one a tag, let them run to opposite sides. They'll have people that run there. We are going to be relevant. And that's legit what happened. Exactly what happened. It's like, it gets so far away from each other that you don't even know where the middle is anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, that's how you get. That's how you get it. Even going back to the question that David asked now, it's like that's how you get so far away from the older generation. Look at the younger generation and think, I don't even understand what this is. And the younger generation looks at the older generation and they think, how are these guys even thinking like this? You know? And then there's like no middle ground. Well, you have middle ground in terms of age as everyone else that's going to be from the two opposite sides. But then we're thinking, but I can understand part of this and I can understand part of that. And then we can understand part of this, we can understand part of that. But the more than the ages start to then diverse and be widened, the more you just like, actually, it's so far away from my thinking that I'm not even going to try to think about it.
True. Yeah, that can. Yeah, some of the things that like the old, even I'm like I have like looked at it or evaluated my, so whatever content I take in or things that interest me, obviously, and whatnot. And then you look at like the generation of my parents, for instance, like, so you sit in their conversation or whatever topic that really drives them and whatnot, and you just sit in there, you just like I can connect, and because I can connect with any of this, like, or I cannot understand how you think the way you do in this particular way. I'm not interested to even hear why you think that way. So I'd much rather go somewhere else where I can speak the same language, in that this is more interesting for me. But then there I'm like, I don't understand, like, why would you even like treat this one is the big one. It's like, oh, this is how like men should be treated, for instance, and whatnot. So the gap is like huge there where you're like, okay, but then I don't understand why is this done this way or whatever. And then even them, they will be like, I don't understand how or why this is done this way by younger people now. Or so that like there can be like a gap there where it's like I don't want to listen to what you have to say, and then they also like I just don't understand. So
Yeah. And then you start to as soon as you start to have that attitude as a person, then you start to develop triggers, because that's when then all of a sudden you just say, well, I don't even want to converse with this person. I'm gonna go this way, and then all of a sudden you have certain triggers where if you see someone like that and they say certain words that then you affiliate with that group, then you already say, oh, I want to talk about this. Oh, here we go, here we go. You even have to hear the rest of the story, and then you get further and further away apart from each other, because then there's no middle ground, right? Because then you don't converse. And when you don't converse, and you say, which is again, it's a blessing and a curse in a sense, because you want things to keep changing in life, because life keeps changing all the time, right? But then in some respects, it's like sometimes it changes so quickly that then you don't even get an opportunity to listen to the changes that have, or you listen to how much you've changed, right? And it's just went boom, straight into this. And now you're like, all of a sudden it's like you go from 3310s to, to like alien type phone. You don't even know what that was to begin with. No one even transitioned you into that. And all of a sudden your life is this, and there was no conversation in between them. And if that happens with information, then that's almost near tragic, because then that's how you lose history, that's how you lose culture. And and it happens. That happens even in like small, like in like a year, space of a year, where we're fighting over one thing, and then that concludes, and then we don't learn from it because there's so much that happens in those months that then when you're fighting another thing that's exactly the same as that thing, it's almost like you forget what the result was of that thing, and you can't even formulate it on this result, and then it just ends up being the same, and then hence the term history keeps repeating itself because it just happens so quickly that you never spend time with that thing, that then it happens with this thing, and that thing happens with that thing. Before you know it, it's like, black versus white people, for example. It's like, okay, how did that work? Well, it didn't work out really great for either party because everyone wants to play the victim and everyone was the perpetrator. So therefore, maybe in the future, what we should do is then actually speak, and then before you even want to speak, boom, then it's here, male versus female. And you're like, shit, okay, I don't know how that ended. Okay, well, let's fight, and you fight, and then boom, before that ends, then it's something else, and it's LGBTQ versus straight people, and then you're like, shit, I didn't even know what the conclusion of this shit was, right? And I'm already on the third stage of life, or the third stage of a fight or an argument, right? But if you had finished that and understood that, you would understand, oh, so this is how it is. This is how it starts, and then all of a sudden that happens, and that spirals into this and this is the conclusion. Therefore, once we learn that, we can come here, and as soon as we see those things there, we can say, look, let's think about this now. Let's change that. Let's change this thing. Let's change that thing so that the result doesn't be the same.
Yeah, learning. But then that's something that we, like, as humans, to be fair, like, we have always been terrible from learning from history. And like, if you, it really, like, you look at history and you're like, we've been repeating the same thing. And one generation would think, oh, we will do better in this, whatever. But then we are very quick to forget and then repeat the same thing that got the previous generation to where they were and whatnot. It's a very, like, common thing to just not learn from things that have happened.
We're quick to forget when we're not benefiting. We remember when we benefited. Because if history was kind to you and then you go into the future, you're gonna remember what you did there for it to be kind. And then you'll remember that. And then you'll want to then keep repeating that because it works out for you, because you want to survive. Right? You'll do it again. And then you'll do it again and again and again until one day you're the victim, then you're gonna want to quickly forget that. Because then you lost that time. Or history wasn't kind to you. Right? And that's how this thing works. It's like you make an example again, male versus female. It's like, okay, well, as females, you got away with slapping a male, right? But then males didn't get away with slapping you, right? So therefore, history was kind to you in that sense. So then what do you do? Yeah. When the next stage comes, you're going to say, okay, well, then we benefit from that. How are we going to benefit from punching men? And then men say, well, we didn't benefit from that shit from last time, so I don't actually ever want to get into the situation ever again, right? And then whoever has the more benefit, the more followers, and the louder noise keeps going, and the other group just says, I don't even want to fight that fight. Then the media says, well, then pushing that narrative that's going to then polarize us. Then you have shows like Cheaters, where women happily smack around guys, or left, right, and center, right? And then as soon as a guy wants to retaliate, boom, all of a sudden, no, you can't do that, that's wrong. You think, isn't that violence? Like, yeah, but come on,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, well, that's it. Go back to our lives.
Yes, we shall.
I'll see you.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Bye. Cheers.